Hi everyone. In this short PowerPoint, I am just going to give you some information about your final research paper, which is a literature review. Don't worry, we'll be learning more about what that means throughout this course. And to explain a little bit about how this paper is developed throughout the whole course. You have a number of assignments that are included in this larger research paper. You can tell if you look at the syllabus let me just scroll up. If you look at the syllabus, you can see that you have two basic things that you're graded on in the course. One is assignments that you'll complete for me. Some of them very small assignments, simple ones like introduce yourself to the class, which you've done this week. Other ones will be longer and more labor intensive. And then you also have this larger literature review paper and all of the different assignments that go into that. So together they make up 60% of your grade. So if you go and look at the schedule, you'll sort of see what that looks like. You can see in this very first introduction module, you have a few short assignments. Introduce yourself, do a little survey for me, browsing communication journals assignment, and then you have your first research paper assignment. Those will always be identified as RP, like that, in the syllabus, and they will also be identified in a similar kind of way on Blackboard. So this first RP assignment is fake news. So you can see if you look at our Blackboard site, the way that looks is your assignments will be identified in pink. The research paper assignments will be identified in orange. So just keep those in mind. So in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about those research paper assignments. You can see here that together they're made up of 60% of your grade, like I said. The first one is due this week. It's fake news. Really, you're just asked to think a little bit about this topic. It's super easy. Altogether, this one is 5% of that 60%. Next week, or in the next module, we'll have another research assignment. This one's called Keywords and Concept Maps. These three here, quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing, reading critically, and what it says, what it does, all will be assignments that ask you to read an article that I provide and to do some things with it. Mark it up, annotate it, or find quotes or things information you'd like to paraphrase or summarize from that article, or do some other stuff in the what it says, what it does. So each of them are very labor intensive. They'll take you 2 to 3 hours to complete, but in each of these assignments, you can use each of these papers as one of the sources in your final paper. This They Say, I Say assignment asks you to do a similar kind of thing where you're reading this time 2 scholarly articles, and we'll learn more in this class about what those mean and what those are. But you'll read 2 of them, you'll have found them yourself, and you will be doing some other writing in relationship to that. What that means is while these are very long, labor-intensive assignments, at the end of these assignments, you will have all of the sources you need to complete your final paper for me in this class. Some of you may choose to find other ones. If one doesn't work so well for you, you may choose to bring in some other types of sources, some popular press sources that you've read or found throughout the course. That's fine, but you have to have at least 5 scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles in this final paper. You'll then turn in an outline for me and the final paper. All of these together will be worth 60%. So also, if you look at the final, if you look at our Blackboard site, you go to course content. If you want to know more about what this final paper looks like, which would be a good idea, at the very bottom you can see the final paper. If you click on that, you'll see the guidelines for the final paper as well as a rubric. I highly encourage you to read over those guidelines now at the beginning of the class so you know what all of these assignments are leading up to. It'll just give you a better idea of what to prepare for. So I just wanted to kind of give you that layout and overview of that final research paper so you kind of understand that it's sort of leading up to this final thing. So this first assignment that you're going to do for me is about fake news. We will all be writing our final papers on the same topic, or at least the same broad umbrella theme of fake news. So as you saw these 3 assignments here, we will all be reading the same article. They're articles that I have chosen. They relate in a broad fashion to the issue of fake news. So they should work no matter what topic you choose to pick. But within this broad topic of fake news, which of course is kind of hot topic right now, it also relates very much to the idea of information and research literacy. And so it's useful to explore in that way as well. But within this broad topic, there are a lot of ways of thinking about what fake news is. For instance, maybe we think about fake news as a specific intentional manipulation of information to try to bring about a certain result, right? So a lot of discussion about Russian intervention in our elections thinks about, fake news in this way. Fake news can relate to just the idea of sort of a confirmation bias, that we tend to get a lot of our news from social networks. Our people in our social networks think like us. So in some ways, we don't encounter a lot of information that differs from our already held beliefs. That's one of the aspects of fake news, or one of the ways to think about that. Certainly clickbait, the shock aspect of news as entertainment, has been discussed in relationship to the concept of fake news. That relates also to this idea of profit, that the real purpose of news is to generate profit. And because of that, it has this way of teetering on fake news aspects. Some people, when they think about fake news, think about how we need to create policies to guard against this, right? Some people think about fake news in the way it relates to issues of democracy. Maybe it is contributing to the downfall of our democracy. Maybe it's making people more apathetic in relationship to information in their world. So you can see that it relates to a lot of different things. So even though we're going to be exploring this broad idea of fake news, you should have ample space within that to kind of cultivate ideas about something you're more interested in exploring. So just to think about a few places, related concepts, subject areas that fit with this broader concept of fake news within the field of communication literacy. Some of those are things like propaganda, right? This is sort of a very early form. It's something that communication scholars have studied for a very long time and can be thought of as an early form of fake news. The way that information gets tweaked or manipulated a little bit in order to try to send a very specific kind of message for a very specific purpose. Certainly those media scholars or communication scholars interested in how do we process information, make sense of it, and use it. In that way, fake news relates a lot to broader ideas of media literacy. Certainly there's a lot of talk about how social media is related to the issue of fake news. There's discussion of news bias or information bias. Facebook and Twitter, 24-hour news cycle. The need for advertising and marketing or profit as a way of contributing to fake news. Things like clickbait. Even the notion of satire, for instance, is the magazine The Onion, which publishes fake news but does so in a comedic way. Is that considered fake news? How should we make sense of that kind of information in relationship to this larger topic of fake news? And certainly discussions of how more generally the idea of fake news is related to our concerns or our ideas about journalism, and also certainly about politics. So lots of space for you to be able to explore other things that are of interest to you. So in this assignment, I just want you to start thinking about that, to think about what you might be interested in relationship to this concept of fake news, and to share some of that with your classmates and with me. So using this conversation, what you've just heard about in this PowerPoint, what you might already know about the subject, what you maybe already read and discussed in this course or in another course, I want you to think about a potential research topic. This doesn't necessarily have to be where you end up in the end of this course, but something you think you might develop in relationship to this broad topic of fake news. If you can't think of anything, search for some stuff on Google. You'll find a ton of it. It might spark some ideas for you. Once you have that idea, this is taking place in a discussion board forum. I want you to write a paragraph telling me what your idea is, how you think it relates to the idea of fake news, why you think it matters, and how you think it fits with communication studies. Submit this by the due date. So pretty easy, but it'll just get you started in thinking about this first step in the research paper.